Gloves here, and today we're going to be doing a diatonic chord set exercise in composition. It's a really fun exercise. Let me show you. We're actually like composing. So you've seen diatonic chord sets. Let's put it to work. Let's make this thing useful for you. So what I want you to do is create a melody and harmonize it using a diatonic chord set. This sheet, by the way, that you're viewing will be included as an example, but there's not going to be like a template. You have to make your own. You have to make your own thing. You just pick the grand staff and pick a key you want to work in, and that's it. Like, it's not that crazy. So you should get used to doing that anyways. So we're going to create a melody. So we're going to write some sort of a melody. That's step one. Step two, we're going to harmonize it using a diatonic chord set. So our melodies should be diatonic, and remember, they should be reasonable melodies that a piano player could easily play. They should not be crazy things. And then we say, use Roman numerals before you write chords. So we say, oh, okay, so we're going to harmonize our melody. We're going to write our melody first. This is very specific. I've designed this to do it in this order because later on, this is like a technique. And if you can't do this technique, you're going to be screwed. So we say, okay, we write our melody, and then we're going to do our chord analysis on our melody. So we're going to pick a melody. We're going to write a chord analysis. And then from our chord analysis, since this reflects a diatonic chord set, we're just going to grab the chord that we picked to use. So we say, oh, the one chord in A major is A. So we're going to put an A major chord down there. And that's it. And we're going to do one in major and then one in minor. I don't care what minor. I chose to do natural minor, but you may choose another key. So let's go ahead and go up to the top, talk about how to do this, because this is going to overwhelm a couple of you. So maybe it'll overwhelm a lot of you. I don't know. But first, you're going to write a melody and make it 8 bars. We've done a ton of this. If you skip those exercises, then too bad. You shouldn't have skipped them. So we say, okay, it's like that moment when the teacher says, okay, now we're going to do this. And if you didn't do this homework, like, good luck. So we have our 8-bar melody that I wrote out. It's all diatonic, and it's easily played by a piano player or whatever. Now we say, okay, now we need to pick chords to go with this melody. So here's this melody, and we've already done this before, but we've been asked to do a Roman numeral analysis. So we think, all right, we are in the key. We chose to work in the key. Well, I did in this case. You may choose to work in like C major or D major or E flat major, something else. So we say, okay, I chose to work in A, so my one chord will be A major. So I say, okay. Then I listen to my melody and I say, it goes dun, 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 dun. And so that was wrong, but it's the general shape of the phrase. And so we say, dun, dun. This part doesn't really make sense to have a chord there, but this one does. Dun, dun. And I could have bum, bum. So I'm like, that sounds like I should have 2 chords. You may choose to do all whole notes through measures if it makes sense with your melody, whatever it is you want to do. You could have the whole thing be A major, but I'm moving this direction because we want to get into this sort of direction as we get into part writing and things. You're going to want to be thinking about chords on every beat pretty much. So we want to start moving there. So we say, okay, this spot, and now we say, all right. So for our next chord, we say, okay, this is a G sharp. And we say, in the key of A major, what chords have a G sharp? So we think of the A major scale, and we say, we're looking at this note here. And I'm like, well, I could play the 7 scale degree, right? Because it's G sharp. So if I just played a G sharp scale, but then it would be a diminished chord. And it could work because diminished pulls to the 1 chord quite nicely. But, I'm not really quite feeling the 7 pull right now. This is at the beginning of the piece. We could if we wanted. So I think, what other notes have this G sharp? And I think, well, the 5 chord has a G sharp. So that's, again, you got to want to be able to build and relate building chords very quickly to your scales. So all those previous exercises we did are sort of conglomerating into like these crazier, bigger exercises that demand the ability to do these things. So if you're not fast enough with these, go back and do those exercises again. Do them in different scales or keys. Do something to speed up your knowledge. Maybe more composition. That fixes most things. So we say, all right, I like the 5 chord at the beginning, so I'll put a 5 chord. And then we go back to this A, and I say, oh, well, this A, the 1 chord, the A major chord, that'll work. And so we say, okay. So we do this for the whole thing. Now, I should point out this over here is frowned upon. I sort of included it for that reason. So generally you're not going to be grabbing the 3 chord very often, but we haven't talked about any formal rules, so I figured I'd show you sort of a weird one. But this is not generally, like, it can work, but it's not smiled upon. So yeah, and I'm going in the opposite direction. These things really pull in sort of anyways. So, okay. We have the, well, 3 to 6, 6 to 3, both pretty okay-ish. You go from 1 to 3 to 6. So I guess it's in the order it would go in. So now we have, so you go through, you do this for the whole thing, and this is the major. So I wrote it out. Then I wrote in my chords. Remember, we're staying only root position because that's all we've talked about. If you want to be adventurous, you can try out inversions, but we haven't talked about them yet, so don't worry about it. And then you write out the chords, which should be drop dead easy because you're working with scale degrees and you had to pick them before you even wrote your chords anyways. So you should just be able to just fill this in at the top. And if we play it, man, my chest was like getting weird there for a second. If we play it. So hey, that was nice sounding. Like, you know, yeah, ideally you want to be able to look at this and also know what it's going to sound like. And as you do more composing and stuff, that stuff will just come to you. And if you do like sight singing, it'll become way easier. Okay, so that's the major. Then we're going to do the same thing for the minor. I'm not going to walk you through all the same steps, but again, well, I'll briefly cover them one more time. So like, we write out our melody. Then we look at each note in our melody. And you see this melody has a bit more going on. I've got like triplets and stuff. So you have to decide, where do I want my chords to appear? So I said, I want a chord here and a chord here. Now you notice this is off the beat. It's because I want it to line up with my melody. Because if I play this first measure, so I wanted dun, dun. I didn't want it to be dun, 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 like on the beat. I wanted it to be off like boom, bump, 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 bump. So just the bump, bump, like off of it. That's what made sense to me. So you could fill it in easily, but really get creative, see where you can put these things. And this da-da-da-da-da-da, we're just lining it up with these nons. So we're emphasizing the music. This little dot over these things, you can do it by hitting Shift S, or you can go to there's like an articulation page on here somewhere. And you can put this over it, and it says staccato. And staccato just means shorter. So these notes are being played shorter than they typically are. Not necessarily like short, like bump, bump. We have other things for that. I just wanted shorter notes. New musicians all the time play staccato like they're like staccatissimo or something like crazy. Like a marcato combined with the staccatissimo. And for some music, that's sort of what was meant. I don't know. It's an interesting deal. Anyways, it just means shorter. So these notes are being played shorter. So we have so I look at my first note and I say, I definitely need a chord on my first note. I wanted a big stab. And so I said, oh, this is a G. And I'm moving in G minor. So I've got 2 flats. And I stayed, again, completely diatonic. If you go chromatic on me or something, you're going to suffer from weird chord syndrome as far as like identifying chords and stuff. So we say, okay, G. So obviously G minor seems like the reasonable decision. Then I go da 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 da, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I had like a da bump thing going on there. And I said D. If I play my G minor scale, whoops, my bad. So I say, oh yeah. So I say, where are the D's in this thing? So if I were to like play through some of the chords, be like, okay, there's the one chord that has a D in it. So I really could actually keep the G minor chord, maybe try an inversion or something. I can tell you right now, it'll be kind of, actually it could work quite nicely with an inversion, but that's sort of out the door, but you can experiment. So you say, okay, what's our next chord? Well, it's this one. It's the 2 diminished, doesn't have a D in it, so we can't use that one. And then we make our next chord, and it is the relative major. And so we say, hey, that's kind of cool. It's got the D, but I didn't pick that one because I kept going. So I said, okay, we have the C minor, the minor 4, and then we also have the minor 5. And that's the one I went with, D minor. So, and the reason is 1-5, I mean, like if you can do a 5 at this point in your education on music theory, really safe bet. So I'd go with 5 most of the time if you can manage it. Later on, you'll begin to look for other things to do. But when you're starting out, just go with like the rudimentary stuff. Get really comfortable with it and then move into the more advanced things. So say, okay. And then a 4, another standard move. Now, in the minor key, 3 is actually way more common. So this is not as frowned upon here. But you go through, you pick your chords, and generally you should end up on the 1 chord if your melody makes sense generally. So this one actually sounds like this. So my use of the 2 diminished is a little funky. But again, we have not talked about any sorts of rules about this stuff yet. That'll come up much later. So I am taking advantage of just doing weird, sort of unusual stuff sometimes. But yeah, that's what's going on there. Those are my examples. You can take them, use them as templates maybe. Just write out a melody, do an analysis using a key. And we've talked about sort of the idea of doing this. And then write out some chords that go with it, and you're writing music, like full-on music. Like you have the thing. It might not always be the most interesting, and it's pretty limited right now, but those things will begin to branch out more and more as we increase your knowledge. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Support me on Patreon. I deeply appreciate it, and have a blessed day.